so many have given so much for. And this is why, on this important day, I am pleased to announce that President Zelensky will address us shortly, followed by Speaker Ruslan Stefanchuk, the Chair of the Rada of Ukraine. And allow me also to have a special welcome to the Ambassador of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people present in the plenary today. Mr. President, thank you for showing the world what it means to stand up. Thank you for reminding us about the dangers of complacency. Everyday acts of extraordinary heroism by Ukrainians inspire us all. Defence forces and citizens making the ultimate sacrifice to delay a column of tanks. Senior citizens standing up to face down Russian troops with nothing but pride and sunflowers as their weapon. Brave women forced to give birth in metro stations next to their Kalashnikovs. They showed the world that our way of life is worth defending. It is worth a cost. All those who remember living under occupation will attest to that. All those standing up in Belarus, all those looking to us in Moldova, in Georgia. It is worth it for us, for the next generation, for all those in Ukraine and around the world who believe in Europe and in our way, and for all those who want to be free. Our European response was on display over the last very painful days. This must be our whatever it takes moment. Neighbouring states have accepted hundreds of thousands of fleeing Ukrainians. Europeans sheltered Ukrainians in their homes. We have implemented a series of unprecedented, massive sanctions. We have gone further and will provide much-needed weapons to Ukraine. We have declared that Russian aircraft and oligarchs' private jets are no longer welcome in our open skies. We have moved for Russia to be disconnected from the SWIFT system. We have banned Kremlin propaganda tools. European citizens, organisations, businesses, sports have taken a clear and forceful stand, underlining that they will not deal with or welcome an aggressor. And Europe stands ready to go further still. We recognise Ukraine's European perspective. And as our resolution clearly states, we welcome, Mr. President, Ukraine's application for candidate status, and we will work towards that goal, because we will because we will and we must face the future together. Mr. President, we stand with you in your fight for survival in this dark moment in our history. When you look to this European Parliament, you will always find an ally, a space to address Europe and the world, and always, always a friend. This European Parliament has a long, proud history of being a thorn in the side of autocrats. And in this spirit, I will seek a ban on any representatives of the Kremlin from entering European Parliament premises, because aggressors and warmongers have no place in the House of Democracy. Dear President, dear members, let me finish out by setting out 4 important principles for our future. First of all, Europe can no longer remain reliant on Kremlin gas. We need to redouble our efforts to diversify our energy systems towards a Europe that is no longer at the behest of autocrats, that will put our energy security on stronger footing. Secondly, Europe can no longer welcome Kremlin cash and pretend that there are no strings attached. Putin's oligarchs and those who bankroll him should no longer be able to use their purchasing power to hide behind a veneer of respectability in our cities, in our communities, or in our sports clubs. Their super yachts should find no harbour in our Europe, and we can no longer sell passports to Putin's friends, allowing them to circumvent our security. No more. Thirdly, investment in our defence must match our rhetoric. Europe must move to have a real security and defence union. We have shown last week that it is possible and desirable, and more than anything, it is necessary. And fourthly, we must fight the Kremlin's disinformation campaign. And I call on social media and tech conglomerates to take their responsibility seriously and to understand that there is no being neutral between the fire and the fire brigade. President Michel, President von der Leyen, High Representative Borrell, thank you for ensuring European unity and commitment in facing this threat. I know that all of us, all the members of this House, will take the united message of Europe back to our constituencies. President Zelensky, thank you. We are together now. We will be together in the future because we are with Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear President in the media, in this session hall. You know, over the last couple of days, I don't know how to welcome and greet everybody because I cannot say good morning or can say good afternoon or good evening. And I cannot, and that's true. because every day, for some people, this day is not good. For some people, this day is the last one. I speak today now about my citizens of Ukraine who are defending, by paying the ultimate price, they defending freedom. I'm very happy that what I've seen here now and heard here now, I'm very glad to sense this mood, the unifying mood. I'm happy that we have unified today, all of you, all the countries of the European Union. But I did not know, but this is the price that we'll have to pay. And it's a tragedy for me, a tragedy for every Ukrainian, tragedy for our state. I mean, this high price, very high price. Thousands of people who were killed. 2 revolutions, 1 war. And 5 days of full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation. You know, I don't read off the paper, off the sheet, because the paper phase in the life of my country has ended. Now we're dealing with reality. We're dealing with killed people, real life, you know. And you know, I believe that today we're giving lives for values, for rights, for freedom, for the desire to be equal as much as you are. We are giving away our best people, the strongest ones, the most value-based ones. Ukrainians are incredible. And very often we love to say that we will win over everyone. And I'm very happy that you are not only talking about it, but you can see that. And we will overcome everyone. And I'm sure, I'm convinced, there is an expression, Ukrainian choice, European choice of Ukraine. That's what we're striving for, and that's what we're going to, and we went to. So I would like to hear that from you to us, we could hear that Ukrainian choice for Europe from you. I have some time off here because we have breaks between the missile strikes and bombardments. And this morning was a very tragic one for us. 2 cruise missiles hit Kyiv, the city which is located to the borders of the Russian Federation. There were always many Russians there, and they're always friendly. There were warm relations there. More than 20 universities are there. It's the city that has the largest number of universities in our country. The youth is bright, smart there. The people who gathered there all the time and was gathering there all the time for celebrating all celebrations on the largest square in our country, the Freedom Square. And this is the largest square in Europe, and that's true. This is called the Freedom Square. Can you imagine this morning 2 cruise missiles hit this Freedom Square, dozens of killed ones. This is the price of freedom. We are fighting just for our land and for our freedom, despite the fact that all large cities of our country are now blocked. Nobody is going to enter and intervene with our freedom and country. And believe you me, every square of today, no matter what it's called, it's going to be called, as today, Freedom Square in every city of our country. Nobody's going to break us. We're strong. We're Ukrainians. We have a desire to see our children alive. I think it's a fair one. Yesterday, 16 children were killed. Again and again, President Putin is going to say that is some kind of operation and we are hitting a military infrastructure. Where are our children? What kind of military factories do they work at? What tanks are they going with? Or launching cruise missiles? He killed 16 people just yesterday. Dear, our people are very much motivated, very much so. We are fighting for our rights, for our freedoms, for life, for our life. And now we're fighting for survival. And this is the highest of our motivation. But we are fighting also to be equal members of Europe. I believe that today we are showing everybody that's exactly what we are. The European Union is going to be much stronger with us, so that's for sure. Without you, Ukraine is going to be lonely, lonesome. We have proven our strength. We have proven that as at a minimum, we are exactly the same as you are. So do prove that you are with us. Do prove that you will not let us go. Do prove that you indeed are Europeans. And then life will win over death and light will win over darkness. Glory be to Ukraine.
Thank you very much for your strong message, President, for your bravery and for your conviction. I will now give the floor to the Speaker of the Ukraine Parliament, Ruslan Stefanchuk, for his intervention.
First of all, I would like to thank you for the possibility to speak, to address the European Parliament. And I would like to say, look at my back. You see the shoots that everybody sees today, the whole world sees today. 8 years ago, Ukrainian people said categorically no to the Russian aggression, to their attempt to change their way to home, to European nation, to the united European Union, to a very successful unifying process that they demonstrated during all these years. Instead, our right to develop, our right to be a democratic state that chooses itself its own way was completely ruined by the country that doesn't respect international law, international principles, that destroys territorial integrity and sovereignty. And the result you see today very clearly. Amount of killed, amount of wounded. You know that the aggressor attacked Kharkiv full scale tonight. Today, other cities are being constantly under attack. You know, I think that in the history of Europe there is a crossroads. Europe is now fighting aggressor, and it is very important how this challenge will be rebuffed by the united civilization. Dear parliamentaries, I know that you will look at a whole range of serious economic sanctions that you will adopt against the aggressor. I would like you to understand that today Ukraine is defending the border of the civilized world. And God forbid Ukraine falls. Nobody knows where Russian aggressor will stop. You know, when I was in my official suit, and we were working in the parliament, and we have been taking very important reformist laws. But just today I was 4 times descending into the basement because above my 1,500 old city there are bombs, missiles, and they do everything to break Ukrainian spirit, but this wouldn't happen. So think now what can happen to Europe if the Russian horrible empire is renewed, if the European Union would be able to protect the space of freedom which was created during the last dozens of years. And what is felt in Eastern European countries now, when Russian tanks will confront their borders. To which other regions Kremlin will look after it conquers Ukraine? That I would like to call upon you to think strategically, to support the unity of European Union, to support Ukraine, to make it strategic partner, and the most important, act. Don't be silent. Collect all your efforts and show that Europe today is unified as never, because the threat today is like never before. And the best support to the people of Ukraine in these darkest hours will be the real recognition of our European aspiration, because the membership in the European Union, even before these events that started on the 24th of February, was supported by the majority of Ukrainians. And this is our mandate. This is our mandate to have relationship with you, with the European Union, because the Ukrainian people have made their choice. And I'm calling upon all the member states and the leadership of European Union to support the candidate, the aspirant status for Ukraine, which is now supported by the whole of Ukrainians. You know that Volodymyr Zelensky has already signed the letter with our application to membership according to Article 49 of European Union agreement. Dear friends, in the project of the resolution of the European Parliament, there is a whole range of sanctions going to be reflected against the aggressor. I call upon you to support them, because let's together we have to confirm the Churchill expression about that there are no small people and no small countries. We know that Ukraine has proven that this slogan during the last 6 days. Let's be worthy of those people who are perishing right now for the European Union, for the future of our European house. Let's understand that there cannot be peace in Europe without Ukraine. There could not be integral Europe without Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your words, for your courage and for your commitment to peace and parliamentary democracy. I give the floor now to the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, for his statement.
Madame la Présidente du Parlement européen, Madame la
President of the European Parliament, President of the Commission, members of the European Parliament, dear President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, dear Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament, the words that you have expressed pierce our hearts and our souls and show how serious the situation is. The challenge is a very serious one, and the decisions that we're going to have to take together are also very serious ones, because once again, blood and war have reached European soil.
Vladimir Putin launched a brutal, massive invasion of Ukraine, an unjustified and unprovoked war based on despicable lies, and he did it only for one reason. Because you, dear Volodymyr Zelensky, you, dear people of Ukraine, in Maidan, you made the choice of freedom, democracy, and rule of law. And dear colleagues, it's not only Ukraine that's under attack. International law, rules-based international order, democracy, human dignity are also under attack. This is geopolitical terrorism, pure and simple. We must support Ukraine, and we are supporting Ukraine. We must protect peace, we must protect democracy and international law. And ladies and gentlemen, our transatlantic alliance is strong, united, perfectly coordinated, and we are also working closely with the members of the G7 and with the United Nations, and more countries are engaging in an anti-war coalition along with people from around the world with one common message. Russia, stop the war, go home, let's talk. We are putting maximum pressure on Russia and its leaders. We are stepping up to support Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. I salute with all of you President Zelensky and the brave people of Ukraine for their courage and composure. And it's also our duty to rise to this historic moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we promised together that we would react quickly, that the consequences for Russia would be massive and severe, and our actions have matched our words. We have responded with massive and unprecedented sanctions. We imposed sanctions on political and military leaders, on oligarchs, on Vladimir Putin, on Sergei Lavrov. We are also taking powerful measures to severely restrict the use of the foreign currency reserve of the Russian Central Bank. We are excluding key Russian banks from the SWIFT system. And we are also imposing severe sanctions on key sectors of Russia's economy. Mais mesdames et messieurs, nous devons être...
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to be honest about all of this. These sanctions will also impose a cost on us, and this is a price worth paying, because what's at stake is our values, our convictions, and our common future.
Alors, chers collègues, bien sûr.
Colleagues, obviously supporting Ukraine is mobilising financial resources. That's what we're doing, and we're going to continue to do. There's going to be an international donors conference. We also, together with our member states, be committed and engaged on the direct borders with the Ukraine. We'll be helping refugees, people fleeing war and conflict, and we'll be showing our solidarity to the Ukrainian people and those who are mobilising. But obviously, solidarity is also demonstrated via defensive military resources, which are being and will be delivered on. This was something that we decided on Saturday morning, together with the High Representative for Foreign Affairs. We decided to activate the peace facility with the support of member states so that we can support the purchase of these defensive military equipment, which is so crucial for the Ukrainian people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a few moments ago, President Zelensky looked us in the eyes. He opened up his heart, and he has made an announcement which we've now received officially. The request for the European Union to officially recognise that Ukraine is a candidate country. It'll be up to us as a European Union to act in accordance with the times. It's going to be difficult. We know there are different views in Europe. There are various views on this subject, and it'll be up to the European Commission to produce an opinion on the basis of which the Council will take its responsibilities on board. The Council will have to seriously look at the symbolic, political and legitimate request that's been made, and will have to make the appropriate choices in a determined and clear-headed manner. Ladies and gentlemen, when this war was launched, Vladimir Putin thought that he would break European unity. He was wrong. He probably thought that he would face inertia, paralysis, the search for excuses to avoid taking decisions, but he was wrong. When he launched this action, he probably thought that he would take Ukraine easily and rapidly, but he was wrong, because the Ukrainian people are resisting bravely. He probably thought that he would launch a fatal blow against that which we incarnate, freedom and the rule of law. But again, he's wrong. And in 1961, General de Gaulle said that every retreat excites the aggressor. It makes him redouble his pressure and makes his action easier. Western powers can best serve world peace by standing up firmly against aggression. That's the position of President Zelensky, and that's the position that we have to adopt. We have to stand firm and look at the aggressor, and we have to see President Zelensky as the incarnation of stability, security, enlightenment and European values. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Michel. I now give the floor to the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, for his statement.
Monsieur le Président du Conseil européen, Madame la Présidente.
President of the European
Union, dear members of the European Parliament, I will try to share with you my thoughts on the meaning of the tragic events that we are living and the provisional lessons that we can draw from them, especially for the common security and defense policy, which I have the honor to try to develop, and it remains an intergovernmental policy, a policy which is yet in the hands of the member states, but cannot be implemented efficiently without the strong cooperation of the Commission competences. I think this is the moment in which the geopolitical Europe is being born. Ça, c'est l'acte de naissance de l'Europe.
This is the act of the birth of a geopolitical Europe. Once we are aware of the challenges that we face, the moment Europe must assume its responsibilities, the moment we become fully aware that for the first moment since the Second World War, we are seeing one country invade another. This is a country with nuclear weapons. This is part of its intimidation tactics. It makes me sick when I think about the historical analogies and how we can look back at the events of the start of the Second World War.
Of tragedy to which Europe is being confronted today. The return of tragedy, far from frightening us, should galvanize us. First, because it believes the idea that the European project had lost its momentum because the horizon of the war has been faded. Unfortunately not. This reminds us that the evil, the tragedy and the war never fade away. And it's about the relationship with war, with the use of force, with the violence, who have been debating here. We have been debating for years to find out can Europe can counter it. And this is why in the recent years we have talked more about defense issues than in the past, and we have begun to set up joint military programs. Well, that's why the European Parliament itself has voted to set this European Defence Fund, and the Member States has created this European Peace Facility that now we are mobilising in order to provide arms to Ukraine. The European Council in the next weeks will adopt the strategic compass. And with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, we must amplify our reflection, adjust our means, and anticipate our responses. Because one of the lessons that we have to learn from the invasion of Ukraine is that more than ever, Europe must to think strategically about itself, its environment, and the world. This is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. Europe must amplify its reflection on security issues, and the European Parliament has had an important role to play in this regard. We think we need to think about the instrument of coercion, retaliation, and counterattack in the face of reckless adversaries, because all we need to understand is that to make peace, we need to be two. But to make war is enough to be one. This is exactly what Mr. Putin is telling us. And that's why we have to increase our deterrent capacity a lot. We need to increase our deterrence capacity in order to prevent war. And it's clear that our deterrent has not been strong enough to stop Mr. Putin's aggression. But since this aggression has started, we have reacted in the last few days in a way that Mr. Putin didn't expect. And we are showing him that we will never sacrifice our freedom and the freedom of others on the altar of our well-being and prosperity. Being president of this parliament in 2007, I had the opportunity to tell to Mr. Putin eye to eyes on the aftermath of the killing of a journalist, Anna Politkovskaya. I told him, we are not going to change human rights by your gas. And this is the moment to repeat and to act on that. We will not share, we will not abandon the defense of our human rights and freedom, because we are more or less dependent on Russia, and we have to start working quickly, as the Commission has proposed, in order to cancel this dependency. Last Saturday, after having held another Foreign Affairs Council and attending the debate of the European Union Council, I was talking with you, President Michel, and you told me, are we doing everything we can? Is there something more than we can do? Is that enough? Are we so powerless? And you told me, think, do, act. We have to push member states in order to adopt decisions on SWIFT and to take Russia out of the financial system. Think about how can we arm Ukraine, not country by country, one after all, in an uncoordinated manner. And you encouraged me to talk with member states again. In few hours, we agreed on using this European peace facility in order to bring financial support and coordinate member states on arming Ukrainian army and people. In less than 24 hours, another taboo had fallen. And the President of the Commission immediately, showing a strong leadership, start working in order to get an agreement with our international partners in order to make possible to switch off Russia from the financial system. And you know what? Now, half of the reserves of the Central Bank of Russia are completely out of their control. They are frozen. Do you imagine? This is the coercion capacity. 3 days ago it was impossible, and now it's possible, and they start feeling the consequences in terms of inflation and the fall of their currency. Yes, we have capacities, we have mobilized these capacities, and we have to continue doing so. Putting together the capacities of the member states and the European Union. I want to remember you that the European Peace Facility is not part of the budget that you vote. Is another budget, is an intergovernmental fund managed by the member states, because we claim that we, European Union, we're a peaceful force and we cannot provide arms to anyone else. Yes, we can. Yes, we have done On the next budget, think about it. When you vote the next budget, use your budgetary capacity. You have the budgetary capacity of this institution to put the ways and means in order to face the next crisis and the next Russian aggression. We are also working, en train de travailler dans le domaine international pour.
We are working in the international arena to try and build a coalition to condemn Russia within the UN. They had no votes in favour and only abstentions. There were countries traditionally allied to Russia that did not vote in favour of them. They abstain. And so now we need to build an international coalition. So in the next UN General Assembly, it will be the entire world that will condemn this aggressor. Nobody can look the other way. There is no justification for a powerful country attacking its weaker neighbour. You cannot speak of pacifism. You cannot have the aggressor and the attacker on the same footing. We have to be by their side. We have used our coercive capacity, not necessarily using weapons. When we talk about Europe being a hard power, people think only in military power, but there are other ways to exert hard power. Our coercive capacity is a way of influencing another's behaviour, and this is not just done by weapons. It has been done by the European Commission, and extraordinarily successful measures as put in place by the Commission. So thank you, President von der Leyen. We're not talking about mobilizing missiles, but these sanctions can have a hugely important effect on a country. They will not allow Russia to spend the money that we have spent on their gas to fund this war. That is, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the most important lesson that we can draw from these tragic circumstances. We cannot simply call for the rule of law and hope that our trading and commercial relationships will help move everybody towards a more democratic path. The forces of evil, the forces that want to use physical violence as a way to resolve conflict, are still there, and against these types of forces we have to show a much stronger capacity to act. We need to be more consistent, we need to be more united than we have been up to now. We have done a lot. I think we have surprised the world. I think we have surprised Putin by our rapid capacity to act, and we must continue along this path. This moment here in Parliament, with your applause, that shows us that the EU institutions must continue on this path that we have started. This is the moment that Europeans understand they live in a dangerous world, and in order to confront that, we must have a stronger union. The pandemic has opened the door to innovative actions. It has helped us move along the path to greater unity when facing this virus. And now this tragic moment should give us fresh impetus to be ever more united and to counter these actions that threaten human life, security, and the prosperity of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, High Representative. I now give the floor to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, for her statement.
Madam President of the European Parliament, Mr. President of the Council, High Representative, Mr. President of the Ukraine, dear Volodymyr, Mr. Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament, my honourable members, war has returned to Europe. Almost 30 years after the Balkan Wars and over half a century after Soviet troops marched into Prague and Budapest, Civil defense sirens again went off in the heart of a European capital. Thousands of people fleeing from bombs camped in underground stations, holding hands, crying silently, trying to cheer each other up. Cars lined up towards Ukrainian western borders. And when many of them ran out of fuel, people picked up their children and their backpacks and marched for tens of kilometers towards our union. They sought refuge inside our borders because their country wasn't safe any longer. Because inside Ukraine, a gruesome death count has begun. Men, women, children are dying once again because a foreign leader, President Putin, decided that their country, Ukraine, has no right to exist. And we will never, ever let that happen and never, ever accept that. Honourable members, this is a moment of truth for Europe. And let me quote the editorial of one Ukrainian newspaper, the Kyiv Independent, published just hours before the invasion began, and I quote, "This is not just about Ukraine. It's a clash of two worlds, two polar set of values." End of quote. They are so right. This is a clash between the rule of law and the rule of the gun, between democracies and autocracies, between a rules-based order and a world of naked aggression. How we respond today to what Russia is doing will determine the future of the international system. The destiny of Ukraine is at stake, but our own fate also lies in the balance. We must show the power that lies in our democracies. We must show the power of people that choose their independent path freely and democratically. This is our show of force. And today, a union of almost 500 million people has mobilized for Ukraine. The people of Europe are demonstrating in front of Russian embassies all across our union. Many of them have opened their homes to Ukrainians fleeing from Putin's bombs. And let me thank especially Poland, Romania, Slovakia and Hungary for welcoming these women, men and children. Europe will be there for them, not only in the first days, but also in the weeks and months to come. That must be our promise altogether. And this is why we are proposing to activate the temporary protection mechanism to provide them with a secure status and access to schools, medical care and work. They deserve it. We need to do that now. And we know this is only the beginning. More Ukrainians will need our protection and solidarity. We are and we will be there for them. Our union is showing a unity of purpose that makes me proud. At the speed of light, the European Union has adopted 3 waves of heavy sanctions against Russia's financial system, its high-tech industries and its corrupt elite. And this is the largest sanctions package in our union's history. We do not take these measures lightly, but we feel we had to act. These sanctions will take a heavy toll on the Russian economy and on the Kremlin. We are disconnecting key Russian banks from the SWIFT network. We also banned the transaction of Russia's central bank, the single most important financial institution in Russia, and this paralyzes billions of foreign reserves, turning off the tap on Russia's and Putin's war. We have to end this financing of his war. And second, we target important sectors of the Russian economy. We are making it impossible for Russia to upgrade its oil refineries, to repair and modernize its air fleet, and to access many important technologies it needs to build a prosperous future. We've closed our skies to Russian aircraft, including the private jets of oligarchs. And make no mistake, we will freeze their other assets as well, be it yachts or fancy cars or luxury prosperities. We'll freeze that all together. And thirdly, in another unprecedented step, we're suspending the licenses of the Kremlin's propaganda machine. The state-owned Russia Today and Sputnik and all of their subsidiaries will no longer be able to spread their lies to justify Putin's war and to divide our union. And these are unprecedented actions by the European Union and our partners in response of an unprecedented aggression by Russia. Each one of these steps has been closely coordinated with our partners and allies. The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada and Norway, but also, for example, Japan, South Korea and Australia. All of these days you see that more than 30 countries representing well over half of the world's economy have also announced sanctions and export controls on Russia. And if Putin was seeking to divide the European Union, to weaken NATO and to break the international community, he has achieved exactly the opposite. We are more united than ever, and we will stand up in this war. That is for clear, that we will overcome and we will prevail. We are united and we stay united. Honourable members, I am well aware that these sanctions will come at a cost for our economy too. I know this, and I want to speak honestly to the people of Europe. We have endured 2 years of pandemic, and we all wished that we could focus on our economic and social recovery. But I believe the people of Europe understand very well that we must stand up against this cruel aggression. Yes, protecting our liberty comes at a price, but this is a defining moment, and this is the cost we are willing to pay, because freedom is priceless, honourable members. This is our principle. Freedom is priceless. Our investments today will make us more independent tomorrow. And I'm thinking first and foremost about our energy security. We simply cannot rely so much on a supplier that explicitly threatens us. And this is why we reached out to other global suppliers, and they responded. Norway is stepping up. In January, we had the record supply of LNG gas. We're building new LNG terminals and working on interconnectors. But in the long run, it is our switch to renewables and hydrogen that will make us truly independent. We have to accelerate the green transition, because every kilowatt hour of electricity Europe generates from solar, wind, hydropower or biomass reduces our dependency on Russian gas and other energy sources. This is a strategic investment. And my honourable members, this is a strategic investment because on top, less dependency on Russian gas and other fossil fuel sources also means less money for the Kremlin's war chest. This is also a truth. We are resolute. Europe can rise up to the challenge. The same is true on defence. European security and defence has evolved more in the last 6 days than in the last 2 decades. Most member states have promised deliveries of military equipment to Ukraine. Germany announced that it will meet the 2% goal of NATO as soon as possible. And our union, for the first time ever, is using the European budget to purchase and deliver military equipment to a country that is under attack. 500 million euros for the European Peace Facility to support Ukraine's defence. As a first batch, we will now also match this by at least 500 million euro from the EU budget to deal with the humanitarian consequences of this tragic war, both in the country and for the refugees. Honourable members, this is a watershed moment for our Union. We cannot take our security and the protection of people for granted. We have to stand up for it. We have to invest in it. We have to carry our fair share of the responsibility. And this crisis is changing Europe. But Russia has also reached a crossroad. The actions of the Kremlin are severely damaging the long-term interests of Russia and its people. More and more Russians understand this as well. They are marching for peace and freedom. And how does the Kremlin respond to this? By arresting thousands of them. But ultimately, the longing for peace and freedom cannot be silenced. There is another Russia besides Putin's tanks, and we extend our hand of friendship to this other Russia. Be assured they have our support. Honourable members, in these days, independent Ukraine is facing its darkest hour. At the same time, the Ukrainian people are holding up the torch of freedom for all of us. They are showing immense courage. They are defending their lives. But they are also fighting for universal values, and they are willing to die for them. President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people are a true inspiration. And when we last spoke, he told me again about his people's dream to join our union. Today, the European Union and Ukraine are already closer than ever before. There is still a long path ahead. We have to end this war, and we should talk about the next steps. But I am sure nobody in this hemicycle can doubt that a people that stands up so bravely for our European values belongs in our European family. And therefore, honourable members, I say, long live Europe and long live a free and independent Ukraine. Me z vami, slava Ukrainie.
We are with you. Glory be to Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, President von der Leyen. We now move to the speakers on behalf of the political group, starting with Manfred Weber for the EPP Group.
Der 24.
24th of February, significant date in Europe and the world. War has returned to Europe. And of course, it seems what we're doing here, it hardly measures up to what the Ukrainians are now doing. So right now, we're focusing on our admiration for the Ukrainians, with their president leading them, their strength, their love of liberty, their decisiveness. They are the heroes of the European way of life. The 24th of February is a day of freedom for Europe, from Dublin to Athens, from Lisbon to Riga. And the same feeling of shock everywhere, dismay with this aggression. On the other hand, admiration for the people of the Ukraine. They're fighting for us, they're fighting for our values. These days, this Kyiv moment of the 24th of February makes everyone European. This moment forces us to give clear answers. When President Zelensky asks us, are we welcome? May we become members of the EU? Do we belong? Then I say, on behalf of the largest party of Europe, yes, you are welcome. Yes, you belong to the European Union. You are friends. This Kyiv moment forces us to look at the alternatives. Putin is the brutal aggressor. He represents the opposite of our convictions for nationalism, for autocracy. This brutality of trying to have imperial influences, the opposite of us. We want to conquer borders and demonstrate respect to everyone and defend our democracy and defend our freedoms. This Kyiv moment also means we have to be honest. We have to make it clear that we have to take action. With these sanctions, we have an exemplary package. I'd like to thank everyone for the last day's work. We, as a group, we support these measures, but one thing is very clear. A few days ago, a week ago, we didn't really hear the same words. Some people were refusing to talk about Nord Stream 2 as a possible sanction. We weren't decisive enough. So today, that means we have to take action and we have to really abolish this unanimity in foreign policy. This Kyiv moment also means a strong NATO, but it also means a strong European pillar. And the EPP visited NATO troops in Lithuania, and I asked the commander, what's your greatest wish? And we say 50% of our time is to deal with the technical differences among for example, the radios and the equipment. What we need is a European structure. That's what they were asking for us, those people who are now defending Europe. This Kyiv moment means we have to think big as Europe. So this conference on the future of Europe has to be rethought. We've concluded our citizens' dialogue. Now it's the right time to make this conference a genuine place to decide about the future of Europe, to have the courage together. And if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it? And this Kyiv moment demonstrates to us that we have to really look at the policies we're deciding. Energy policy, as Mrs. von der Leyen just said, we have to speed the energy transition up. We have to have new trade partners, new agreements on energy. Our Kyiv moment means for us that we are together bound to the US. With Joe Biden, we have to use this moment. It demonstrates how important it is to have, how decisive our trade partners are for freedom and democracy. We have to have a new free trade agreement with the US to demonstrate this. It's the right time, this Kyiv moment, to look at the future development of Europe. A new age is dawning. We need endurance, but the European way of life is worth it. Freedom has no price. The price of freedom is something you pay when you lose it. And the Ukrainians are demonstrating that today. And we stand with you, Ukraine.
Thank you, President Weber. I now give the floor on behalf of the S&D Group to Irache Garcia Perez.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, President. Putin's war against Ukraine marks the beginning of a new stage in Europe and in the world. These are historic times and we need historic decisions. Financial and military support to Ukraine, deconnecting the main Russian banks from the SWIFT platform, the activation of the International Protection Directive to assist Ukrainian refugees, and banning the Kremlin's media machine are all part of a qualitative leap in our capacity to respond. Western democracies have achieved an admirable unity to face this challenge, and it's crucial that we maintain our unity given the serious challenges that we will continue to have to face. The 4 sanctions packages headed by Mr. Borrell are the first step in a long crisis that will raise new dilemmas. For example, how to continue to support Ukraine, or how can we react to probable Russian reprisals? Unity requires courage and sacrifice. It's only with courage and sacrifice that we can achieve the energy independence that we need to defeat Putin. Our utter commitment to a global energy order that's based on renewable energies over the long term needs to be complemented with the creation of strategic reserves of gas for the short term. We also need courage and sacrifice to welcome all the refugees who are fleeing war. We need shared responsibility there. The cowardly attack of Putin shows his real fear, which is democracy. A successful democratic transition in Ukraine needs to serve as an inspiration to those who bravely have taken to the streets in Russia. The fight for peace and freedom of the Russian and Ukrainian peoples require our support. We cannot rest until Putin is judged as a war criminal by the International Criminal Court. Putin's attack will also reveal his accomplices from the extreme European right and a model of living together of life which represses the opposition's, censors the media and denies individual rights. Currently in the cities and towns of Ukraine, it's not only their security and territorial integrity that's at stake, but the world in which we want to live. It can be a democratic world based on international law, diplomacy and human rights, or it can be a different world based on brute force, spheres of influence and violations of rights that should be universal. No tyrant will make us renounce our desire to forge alliances that are based on peace, which protects the sovereignty of nations, progress, freedom and the integrity of our borders. History is never wrong. We can't leave Ukrainians alone, as the Spanish felt during the first half of the 20th century in the fight between fascism and democracy. The resistance of the heroic Ukrainian people will be the triumph of Western democracies. And let me just conclude with a personal comment. I'm proud of Europe, the Europe of today, the Europe that does not resign itself to what's going on, Europe that looks back to learn from history, but above all looks forward to defend what we hold most precious, democracy and peace. Thank you.
I now give the floor on behalf of the Renew Europe Group to Stéphane Séjourné.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam President, Mr. President, High Representative. Let me start by welcoming the courage of the Ukrainian men and women who are fighting not just for their country but their right to choose their own destiny. President Zelensky and the President of the Ukrainian Parliament, you are heroes of democracy. The European Parliament today has shown it is a strong ally of the Ukrainian people. Europe is a shield that protects its democracy and freedoms for all the peoples of Europe. Of all the decisions taken this week, let me just say you have the absolute support of our political group. There is huge work that has been done by the European institutions in order to put in place and make operational these sanctions and support measures for Ukraine. Alone or divided, I can't even imagine what Putin would have done to our continent. You have been up to this historic challenge. Let me go even further. When it comes to support measures for Ukraine, I believe giving the candidate status to Ukraine is important. Now, of course, it will take some time for the Ukraine to join the EU. There'll be a rigorous process, but I think it's important that we acknowledge that the Ukrainians are fighting for democracy. They are already part of our community. I think the status of candidate country would be a fair acknowledgement for this. We expect to see strong sections to really dry up all of the financial resources for Putin in this war. Technological embargoes, gas, oil, against the oligarchs as well, an end to the golden passports and residence rights, as you have mentioned, Madam President. All of these sanctions must be activated as soon as possible. We hope that this will not hit the Russian people too hard, as we know who are majoritarily opposed to this war. We need to welcome the Russian opposition here in this hemicycle as well. Now, these measures will have a cost for our economies, so we need to mutualise costs at a European level for the countries and companies who are hardest hit by this. Let me conclude with one final point, Mr. President, Madam President, to say that there is still some work to be done for Europe to guarantee its solidarity as shown by this crisis. Our journey towards strategic economy needs to include a review of the defence budget at national and European levels, as well as an energy autonomy strategy as well. Colleagues, the protection of our European model comes at a cost. My political group believes that our freedoms are a fundamental value. We are willing to assume that cost when it comes to sanctions or investment in tools of European sovereignty. We understand sacrifices of the European people and also the sacrifices of millions of Europeans before us who have made this the freest continent in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now give the floor on behalf of the Green Group to Philip Lamberts.
Dear Ukrainian friends, we do not have enough words to praise your courage and determination to defend your freedom. Your resistance is a wake-up call to all democrats around the world. Without the will to fight, democracy will perish. To your aggressor, I say, your lies for justifying war cannot and will not remain unchallenged. No, Mr. Putin, Ukraine is not ruled by Nazis. On the contrary, its legitimately elected president stems from a family who was blooded in the Holocaust. No, Mr. Putin, there's no genocide going on in the Donbass. What is happening there is a war that you yourself started 8 years ago, which took already 14,000 lives, and that your invasion brings only to a new level. No, Mr. Putin, Ukraine has never intended to get nuclear weapons. On the contrary, it relinquished voluntarily those it inherited in 1991 from the Soviet Union in exchange for its territorial integrity, which you have been trampling on ever since you annexed Crimea in 2014. No, Mr. Putin, there was no perspective for Ukraine to join NATO in the foreseeable future. And if there is such an aspiration in Ukraine, as there was in so many nations once subjugated by the Soviet Union, your aggression against Ukraine explains why. No, Mr. Putin, the NATO member states have no intention to deny the Russian people's right to peace and security. It is your reckless actions that imperil those legitimate aspirations. The reality, Mr. Putin, is that the people of Ukraine chose for freedom, for democracy, for rule of law, for peace. And that choice, made by a people so close to Russia by history and geography, was never a threat to Russia's security, but to the very existence of your authoritarian and kleptocratic rule. This is the real reason for the invasion, at the cost of precious human lives and livelihoods, both Ukrainian and Russian. The reality, Mr. Putin, is that your brutal aggression against the Ukrainian people is doomed to fail. You wanted to deny their very existence as a people. Your aggression in cementing their unity against the invader. As citizens of the European Union, we know that the war on Ukraine is more than just an aggression against a sovereign state. It is a direct challenge to the values that lie at the foundation of our union. Ever since it was started, the European project was and remains a peace project, so that the rule of brute force be replaced by the rule of law, so that democracy, dialogue, compromise and cooperation across national borders provide the best basis for shared and sustainable prosperity. We Europeans cannot stand by idle when a partner country is invaded and when our fundamental values are challenged in such a brutal way. This is why, short of direct military intervention, which would be foolish, we must and we will provide the Ukrainian people with all the support we can in order to face the aggression. This is why we must and we will provide safe haven without any discrimination to all those who are fleeing the war to seek refuge on our territory. This is why we must and we will mobilize all political, economic and financial means at our disposal to exert maximal pressure on Putin's Russia in order to make him stop his aggression. And let me be clear to the people of Russia, we have no quarrel with you. You too have the right to live in dignity, and many of you are standing up daily to defend it at great personal risk. We know that resuming the diplomatic dialogue with your country is the only path to a sustainable peace on our continent, but this can only happen if the aggression stops. As for us Europeans, meeting the challenge put to us by Putin's war will test our strength, our determination, and above all, our unity. It will not come cheap. Therefore, it will force us to make hard choices. The first must be for cohesion within and across member states. The global financial crisis, the Eurozone crisis, and the pandemic have deepened social and economic injustice in our union. It cannot be that once again the brunt of the massive efforts required to counter Putin's
Somdan Company Limited ni wauzaji wa matairi bora na imara kwa magari makubwa na madogo. Chapa ya Junction Tires. Tuna zaidi ya miaka 17 kwa uzaji wa matairi bora na yaliyopitia viwango vyote vya uimara kutoka China na hapa Tanzania. Unapofika dukani, ulizia matairi chapa ya Junction kwa kuwa ni matairi sahihi kwa gari yako. Tunapatikana mtaa wa Livingstone na Narung'ombe jijini Dar es Salaam, na pia tupo jijini Mwanza. Kwa mawasiliano zaidi tunapatikana kwa namba 0773100838 au 0622032260. Junction Tires, kwa uhakika wa safari zako.